Phil Schiller surprised me. At the very beginning of the event, and I've been saying this for a couple of days, I said the most interesting thing will be to hear how Apple spins this, how Apple explains why they are removing the headphone jack, a well-known, widely used, open, as in non-proprietary connector, in favor of a connector that is owned by Apple, must be licensed for anybody else to use. I mean, the cynic in me would say, well, there's one word, profit. The word Phil Schiller chose was courage.
Yeah. I've already received. How many times have I received yet the picture of Bert Lahr in the Wizard of Oz with that courage, and then with Phil Schiller's face on it? Right now, it's up to 5.
Oh, wow, didn't take much time. What do you think? Is that a reasonable rationale? Why? What courage is involved?
None.
Courage to take a lot of abuse from.
That's true. Or even to lose sales. Could it cost Apple sales?
It'll only cost Apple the sales from people who were already thinking really hard about switching to Android anyway, or people who didn't have that much of a connection to the iPhone to begin with. I think that they have hard numbers to demonstrate internal that reminds them that people are, if there's a reason why someone is going to not buy the iPhone 7, it's not going to be because they deleted the headphone port. It's something that, just like the crummy keyboards on a lot of the MacBooks, it's something that people will sigh and get used to because they're not going to hate it as much as they're going to hate switching to an entirely new operating system, an entirely new piece of hardware, and rebuying a whole bunch of apps. So that was, they had 2 good reasons after that. So that was the
the other thing.
But that was the headline. That was
number 1, right? Yeah. And that was just silly.
The thing that I think is that it may actually, I don't think it would really prompt people to not buy the iPhone 7 exactly. It may prompt people to delay the purchase because they have to think about it. It's sort of like, oh, well, but how am I going to do this and how am I going to do that? I just have to think about all this stuff. So, people may be putting it off longer and longer, possibly even for another generation as they work through what their issues are going to be.
Apple Apple will. I shouldn't have had that spiced mocha. That's clear now. Apple did say they will include a $9 dongle in the box that will convert Lightning to analog, and that's good because it's only $9. I mean, Apple often overcharges for these dongles.
Well, and they're including in the box. I mean, it's free. Yeah. Everyone will get one.
And they'll include a pair of Lightning headphones.
Right. They couldn't change that.
They'd have to
and also the pricing of them. Once you lose them or put them through the wash, it's going to be $29 for replacement. I think that's about the same as what the regular wired ones cost, or not. If it's more, it's not that much more.
Yeah, but the one thing that does hurt though is the people who lose them constantly, break them constantly, and actually like, in essence, cheap headphones. You can get a pair of decent headphones for $6 on Amazon if you're the sort of person who goes through them. And that's
by the way, those $6 ones aren't much worse than the $30 ones. I mean,
right. That's just
but the issue is going to be that even if that company, the $6 company, wants to sell Lightning-based headphones, it's going to cost them $5 just to license. I don't know what the fee is, but something like $5.
It's actually more than that.
Is it?
They're going to need to do the Made for iPhone program.
Yeah. And that's expensive.
And that's expensive and complicated, and you have to have, suppliers who are approved. I was talking to a manufacturer of wireless sensor tags, like HomeKit type stuff, and I said, "Is this going to be HomeKit compatible?" And they said, "No, because it's just too expensive. HomeKit also requires MFI certification, and it's just too expensive for us. We don't have enough reason to do it."
Yeah.
And also, remember, it's just a lack of ability to choose the headphones that you really, really want. If there's a punishment for not buying and into the Apple standard, and that is having to keep track of this $9 dongle, which it's going to happen. You're going to be, unless you get a bit of Sugru and just glue it to the end of your Lightning-based headphones, you are going to lose this. You're going to be in a place where you cannot plug in to the device that if you're using old headphones, you're going to be in a situation where you cannot use the headphones you want to use, or you're going to have to find an Apple store and shell out $9. And just like me with a couple of VGA adapters on my iPad, I now have 3 of them because of times where I was in a city and thought I had it, but I didn't, so I'd have to find an Apple store and shell out $30 for another one of them. I mean, they did I don't feel as though the world is going to come to an end. I feel this is a neutral thing. The only time that I feel like I have to clear my throat and interrupt is when people say this is a brave and wonderful and important thing that Apple is doing, because they're also saying, because the reason number two is that he mentioned
Phil Schiller said, and this it just made me queasy. Not merely that it comes down to courage, but the courage to move on to do something that betters all of us. Really? Really, ridiculous. Phil, how does that better anybody except Apple's bottom line? Yep. Come on.
Okay, and you want courage, bundle the AirPods with every iPhone. That would be courage. That would be
courageous and foolhardy at the same time.
Just saying.
That's my.
But let me. But are not. This is the other thing that concerns me. It strikes me that Lightning cables are more fragile, that they do tend to break more than other cables. Is that not the case?
Here is the Lightning cable that I have plugged into my iPad, and it's yellow, and I count on, here's the end of it that's starting to crack already. Yeah. They're not really good at that, and their difficulty is that I can't take the amount of money that I might spend on a pair of Lightning headphones and apply that to a purchase someplace. I can't. I won't want to invest in $200 in a really nice pair of headphones that I can only really use with this one set of devices. Same thing with the AirPods, which is $170 for a really nice pair of Bluetooth headphones, particularly one that doesn't have like connecting wires between them. Okay, I can see that, but no, you will not be able to use, information that I have right now, which is realize that I've been spending the last 2 hours talking into a microphone and a camera, as opposed to calling engineers that I know. The understanding that I have right now is that, I'm sorry, I need to backtrack that. The actual data sheet on it says that it requires a device that can run a 2016 version of iOS or Mac OS. So the watch, the Apple TV, your Mac, your iPhones, if it run iOS 10, for instance, it'll run it. So it doesn't mean that I can take $160 and apply to, I'm upgrading my audio experience everywhere. I spent.
But are you, if you're still using Bluetooth, what's the upgrade?
Better audio, supposedly, but if
this all remains to be seen. We have to try them.
Again, remains to be seen. Yeah. And also, if you want better audio, you have to now convince these people. Okay, but here are a pair of $180 headphones that I don't even necessarily need earbuds that are wireless that work for fitness. I just want great audio. Now, if you're going to sell me a pair of $200 headphones that are wired, that have really good drivers and a lot of air around them, are you willing to tell me that these wireless headphones you're selling me that only works with Apple are going to be better than these wired headphones that I can use with my desktop computer, with my Windows machine, with my home stereo? Is
there an issue with the new wired headphones of charging and listening at the same time? Do people charge their phone and listen at the same time? Obviously, you can't do it.
Right? Yeah. No. But do they?
Do people do that? I guess at night, maybe if you're charging your phone, you've gone to bed.
Yeah, because if say that you're running your audio through speakers, in your bedside, you would want to be charging your iPhone at the same time. I mean, I did think that the AirPods having a little charging case were clever. That was
yeah, they didn't invent that. My Moto Hints, Motorola Hints do the same thing. Any headphone that earbud that just has the battery in the earbud has so little space for battery that it's not all day listening. So the solution is to have a larger case that has an all day battery, and when you're done listening, you put them in there. 15 minutes later, you can use them again. Kind of like the Apple Pencil, and so but that isn't anything Apple invented. That's frankly a necessity on anything with a tiny battery. So that's another issue. If you want to charge and listen, and I guess that's a use case for some people, that's gone.
Someone's going to make another breakout dongle that will have a Lightning connector and an earphone connector, I think, on it. Yeah. And you buy this, and don't worry, you will solve every problem you'll ever have with it. But again,
actually, you know what? I do that on an airplane. I will plug in if I'm lucky enough to have a USB port. I will charge my phone because I'm going to listen the whole flight on a long overseas flight, and I will listen on the headphones, and that way I have something to use for a phone when I arrive. That's gone. Wireless looks like the way to go, but again, we'll just have to see with these AirPods. Only because Bluetooth is such a poor experience for most people.
As I've said many times over the course of this year, as this rumor of now fact has gotten better traction, they have not said a single thing in their 3 reasons that meant that they could not put in keep a headphone jack if they wanted one. So really, I wish you talk about real courage. Real courage is saying we simply don't want to keep making iPhones with headphone jacks. And we know that this is going to annoy a lot of people who are very, very sensible, and we hope we don't lose them as customers, but we want to go our own way with this, as opposed to saying there's things that we can't do with a wired headphone jack. And we've been the same stupid saw about, they whipped out this photo of like telephone operators in the 1920s. We've been using the same connector for
that really pissed
years.
me off, because those those aren't headphone jacks. That's a patch bay. And so the implication that we've been using headphone jacks since the turn of the century for operators is bogus. That's in fact.
I thought that was iCloud.
Tomato.
Isn't that how iCloud looks like behind
Well,
it?
I mean,
that's
Phil continues to impress me with his. Well, he's a marketer. His willingness to kind of bend facts to suit the Apple story is very, very annoying.
I just think that there's a reason why it's been by having a wired connector has been going on for centuries now, including why isn't he railing against like the HDMI cable? Why isn't that wireless? Well, because
it doesn't
electrons
work.
are. If you drop an electron down this end of this copper tube, it will shoot out the other end of that tube, and you don't have to configure it. You don't have to put a chip in it. It costs about as much as a length of copper wire, and so anybody can make it. And it's an open standard. So that's why there are a bunch of bogus arguments in favor of dropping the headphone jack. That's one of the bogus.
Yeah. So the legitimate argument would be, and Phil did make this argument, that it's to save space inside the case. Space, though, that I imagine they immediately gave up by putting a second speaker on the iPhone. Now that's nice. Now we have stereo sound, left-right sounds.
And the cutaway image they had of the iPhone had a big block for the haptic engine that they're using to power the
Oh, that's right. You need a new haptic engine for the home button.
Everything's a trade-off.
It's about the size of looks to be about the size of a stick of dentine gum or Trident sugarless gum.
So maybe that's it.
But again, these are problems that every phone manufacturer has, and almost every phone manufacturer has solved. So it's just, again, I wish they had it's completely legitimate for Apple to say that we are the people who get to design the iPhone, and we don't want to have a headphone jack anymore. And we're not doing this capriciously. We feel as though we're giving all of our users and any new users plenty of options to we're accommodating them. But we're making this decision first and foremost because we want to do this. That's real courage.